Greetings. My name is Ayokunle Odeleye. I'm an artist living and working here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. I'm a sculptor, to be more specific. Last year, I was invited by Bridge to be a part of the Dr. W.B. Du Bois birthday celebration being held in Great Barrington. More specifically, I was a presenter on a panel that looked at the work of Dr. Du Bois and the Niagara movement. My charge was to show images and talk about a bronze bust that I had created of Dr. Du Bois some years ago for Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. And I showed images of the casting process. Since last year, there have been additional activities reflecting the work of the Niagara movement and looking at many of the achievements and the philosophy of Dr. Du Bois in terms of cementing his work in the Niagara movement. There has been a school named after him, which is a fantastic achievement following the city setting aside a day to honor Dr. Du Bois on his birthday. And now there is a committee made up of individuals from Bridge and the Du Bois Center and artists and other community members who are looking at the feasibility of having a statue of Dr. Du Bois commissioned for a site in Great Barrington. I've been invited today to talk about memorials and that endeavor that is being discussed, and how does the conversation around bringing a statue of Dr. Du Bois to Great Barrington fit into a larger national conversation that is currently going on about memorials, what should come down, what should go up. So I've prepared a brief presentation in which I want to take a look at memorials, their significance, their importance, and how does the work of the community in Great Barrington in attempting to have a memorial of Dr. Du Bois fit into a larger national conversation. So if you bear with me, I want to start by showing a few images as we take a brief review of memorials. Memorials historically have been used by civilizations going back hundreds of years in time. What do memorials do? Why are they important? This is a memorial called the African Renaissance Memorial, a monument. It's in Dakar, Senegal, and it commemorates the independence from France. What do memorials do? Memorials are a type of physical structure explicitly designed to commemorate an individual or an event that has become important to a social group as a part of their remembrance of historic record or culture. Memorials say to the public, this is an event that is important to us. These are ideals that we cherish. These are ideals and events that reflect who we are. Because they reflect the ideals of people or certain groups, they often are very emotional in the putting up and the taking down of them. I like to show this memorial because of its scale, its monumentality, the energy and the visual strength that is captured in this particular memorial. There's another memorial that I have found quite interesting. This is a memorial of Antonio Masayo. He was a general in the War of Independence that Cuba fought to free itself from from Spain. It's a monumental memorial. And memorials of this scale, when you see the scale, the commissioning entity, the state, the government, the city, the group, has put a lot of money into that, really showing where they place their priorities and how this event is significant to them. It's a very dramatic pose The actual complete memorial has other images. These images coming out of the ground represent machetes. Masayo was particularly known to have taught his soldiers a fighting style where they used the machete, like a machete you use for cutting down sugar fields. And they used the machete against the swords of the Spanish, and they defeated the Spanish. But again, this is a very emotional memorial. Cubans love the memorial. This is Masayo was an African-American hero, one of the early African-American heroes at a time when the Cuban elite were very racist. So it's also interesting on a lot of levels politically. I want to tell you very quickly about memorials on Monument Avenue in Richmond, Virginia that were highlighted last year during the social protests. But I decided to focus on that because I went to high school in Fredericksburg, Virginia, about an hour from Richmond, Virginia. And I went to college at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. And when I was a student there, we took a class. All freshmen had to take a class called Introduction to Film. There were so many students in the class that the university would bring buses to campus along Broad Street and bus us all the way across town to the theater where once a week we saw historic images and film. The buses took the route along Monument Avenue in Richmond, Virginia. It was the first time I saw Monument Avenue. And while I knew something certainly of American history and had experience as an 18-year-old by that time, many acts of racism in Virginia, I wasn't looking at these memorials in terms of their substance. I didn't even think about what the images were really there for. I thought they were showing a diversity of military leaders from across the spectrum. But I was looking at the form, the shape, the scale, the majesty of these equestrian statues mounted on granite stone. And I decided that I needed to take a closer look instead of simply seeing them riding to class. And so I decided one Saturday when I didn't have class, I was going to walk to Monument Avenue because Monument Avenue is only a few blocks over from my dorm. So one Saturday I walked along Monument Avenue and the first image I remember seeing was Robert E. Lee. Now this is a recent picture of the statue. Recent in a few years ago during the snowstorm in Richmond was kind of rare. And the majesty of the shadow of this thing framed against the sky. And as you move past it, there are more monuments, one after another, after another, after another in different form. Men standing on pedestals and stone memorials. And I decided to walk up to the steps and begin to read the inscription on these monuments. And to my utter horror, I'd have to say, realizing that these were monuments to the gatekeepers of slavery. These were monuments where the state was honoring the terror heaped against Black people. These are monuments that have stood for so long that the state of Richmond is saying, these are our heroes of the Confederacy. This is our historic record, and we're proud of it. I looked at the statues in a total different way after realizing, reading one after another, what these monuments really represented. As you move along Monument Avenue, there are all kinds of poses and designs of these men on these massive beasts mounted on stone. Last year, in the wake of racial protests across the country and across the world, monuments in the United States since May 22nd, the killing, or May 25th, the killing of George Floyd, until June, hundreds of monuments have been taken down as a result of protesters coming in the street day after day saying, we want these images of the Confederacy. We want these images of segregationists. We want these images of American terrorists taken down and replaced by images that reflect democratic principles in the country. This is a map that shows the removal of monuments across the country in June alone. An amazing thing to take place. When I walked along Monument Avenue as a 18-year-old, looking up at these powerful images, I never thought that one day I would see cranes showing up, putting straps on these things and taking down these equestrian statues. I remember this monument of Stonewall Jackson as an 18-year-old college student in Richmond, Virginia. I never thought I would see it coming down to the ground as it did last year on Monument Avenue. The Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart was known for his support of lynching and killing of Black people. And here, his monument was lynched one night in Richmond, Virginia. The rope still around the neck as the crowd attempted to pull it down to the street. President Jefferson Davis, whose image stood for years in the Frankfort, Kentucky Rotunda, was crated up and removed to storage. On Monument Avenue, Richmond, Virginia again, the bronze statue of Jefferson Davis, now being pulled down, requires police protection. Brigadier General John B. Castleman was a Confederate officer, an Army officer, a prominent businessman in Louisville, Kentucky, a prominent landowner. His statue stood in this location for 100 years. It was protesters in the midst of protests against racial injustice that forced the city to decommission the work and take it down. Christopher Columbus was a major source of the anger of protesters around the country and around the world, even to the day. His statues were beheaded, broken, destroyed, pulled to the ground. The statue of him on Monument Avenue was taken down, decommissioned. There has been pushback. Sons and daughters of the Confederacy have filed lawsuits all over the country to protect these images of America's dark past. You recall Donald Trump has made numerous comments on trying to protect these monuments of what he called great American heroes. This image that I saw as a 18-year-old young man in Richmond, Virginia, looking up at it. My whole consciousness has changed, and to see that the consciousness of the nation has changed. So that now, last year, images of George Floyd being projected against it, covered and designed by popular graffiti, forcing the city to clean it, measure it, and take him down. Amazing events in such a short time. How the national consciousness of the country has changed. In Decatur, Georgia is downtown in DeKalb County, about 15 minutes driving distance from my home. Protesters have yearly demanded that an obelisk commemorating the Confederacy be taken down. And the city really has refused. And the state has laws in Georgia that prohibits the removal of monuments. But in the midst of protests last year in 2020, they got so loud and people were so agitated that the city of Decatur decided to take the obelisk down and put it into storage. So what kind of images are going up now across the country? What's replacing these monuments that are taken down? Popular sentiment is asking for monuments of civil rights activities, civil rights activists, positive images that reflect a diversity of American values toward democracy. This is Georgia Tech. This is a bronze sculpture of Rosa Parks. Bronze is a metal that can be colored or patinaed any different color. So while it doesn't look like bronze, it is bronze, material life-size bronze of Rosa Parks. Recently in Atlanta recently, as in a couple of months ago. A sculptor just finished and installed a large-scale 25-foot sculpture of Dr. Martin Luther King on Martin Luther King Boulevard in Atlanta. Now, Martin Luther King Boulevard in Atlanta, like many Martin Luther King Boulevards across the country, used to be a rundown kind of looking street that really wasn't a destination place for most people. The former mayor, Kasim Reed in Atlanta, Georgia, decided that he was going to institute a series of infrastructure projects that brought in new streets, roads, plantings, planters, islands, uplifting the visual quality of the street itself. Although Martin Luther King Boulevard in Atlanta does run through a neighborhood that can generally be called middle class with nice homes, he decided that he was going to do an infrastructure project. And at the center of it, to the joy of many artists in the state, he commissioned 25 projects of civil rights leaders and activists and supporters of democracy that would be placed all along the corridor that runs several miles from the beginning of Martin Luther King at Mercedes-Benz Stadium all the way to the I-285 corridor that circles around the city of Atlanta. This is the front view of the statue of Dr. King, and you see the massive Mercedes-Benz Stadium structure there, which marks the gateway of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And all throughout Atlanta, I only have a few pictures, sculptures are going up of activists, of civil rights heroes and leaders. Atlanta's pouring a lot of money into monuments that cement positive images, that cement a positive historical record in the city of Atlanta. Along a corridor that leads into Interstate 7585 in Atlanta that runs north and south, you see here a monument again of Dr. King. And actually the King Center is not far from this. This artist has taken a flat sheet of Corten steel, has bent it, and a laser cutter has cut the images of Dr. King waving to passerbys. And again, and I showed this during the DuBois celebration last year in Great Barrington, images of W.B. Du Bois in my studio, casted and placed on the campus of Clark Atlanta University. So the efforts of individuals in Great Barrington to have a dialogue about the feasibility of having a statue of W.B. Du Bois casted and brought and placed in the city is an important activity that is in keeping with activities going on now across the country. It is timely that it be considered now. The mood of the nation and of communities are ripe for this kind of thing. Communities across the United States are now demanding that negative images, images of suppression, images of the Confederacy come down, and positive images of civil rights movement and of activists who are pushing for positive social and racial change in this country go up. What you're doing in Great Barrington and having this conversation is timely, it's important, it needs to happen, particularly in the light of the city establishing a day in the honor of Dr. Du Bois, the community placing the name of Dr. Du Bois on a school. What a tremendous set of activities in a short period of time, and the commissioning of a sculpture to commemorate in the historic memory in his hometown, a bust of Dr. Du Bois or a statue of Dr. Du Bois is a timely effort. I applaud you for the effort. I encourage you to continue your work toward this. Forward ever, backward never. Thank you very much.